Hi, I'm Evelyn. Ever been pushed out of your own family, only to watch them circle back and try to take the one thing you built alone? My brother broke into my house. My mother turned the neighbors against me. They forged my signature, cut off my utilities, and then tried to make me look like the villain. How far would your family go to control your life? And would anyone believe you? The light coming through my kitchen blinds had a softness to it that morning, the kind that tries to convince you things are quiet, peaceful, safe. I stood barefoot on the cool tile floor, coffee mug in hand, watching the condensation on the glass slide down in thin, curling trails. For a moment, I let myself believe I was fine, that this house was mine, truly mine, and not just another temporary space someone else would try to claim. I'd worked the night shift again, managing logistics for a distribution company across town. It wasn't glamorous, but it was mine, just like this house. A manufactured home on the edge of Cedar Rapids. It wasn't large, but it was clean, solid, quiet. Mine. I'd bought it outright last year after clawing my way out of sleeping in a damn camper behind a warehouse. I had paid for every square foot with my own exhaustion. That morning I was alone. I liked it that way. Until the phone rang. "Hey, honey." My mother's voice was syrupy, the kind of sweet that coats something bitter. "I was just thinking about how nice it is that you're holding on to the house for the family." My hand tightened around the mug. "I'm sorry, what did you say?" "Oh, nothing," she laughed lightly. "You know what I mean. It's just such a comfort to know it's still in the family." Still in the family, holding it. I didn't say anything else, I just listened. And beneath that sunny tone of hers, I heard it, the old script playing again. I wasn't the owner. I was just the placeholder. Temporary, the backup. Later that day, I went for a long drive. No music, just silence and the sound of old memories crawling out from the corners I'd shoved them into. 2 years ago, when I lost my job during the first wave of COVID, I'd called my parents in tears. I had nowhere else to go. My camper was parked behind a closed-down gas station, and my last $80 was reserved for gas and maybe a bottle of water. I asked them if I could park it in their driveway. My mother's voice had been flat. "If you want to stay here, you'll need to contribute. We can't just let you squat, Evelyn." Squat. That's the word she used. Meanwhile, my brother Reed, his wife, and their 4 kids had been living in their house rent-free for over 6 years. Reed hadn't worked consistently since his 3rd kid was born, but apparently, family sacrifices were meant to come from me. I never forgot the way it felt when I hung up the phone that night, frozen inside my truck, listening to the wind claw at the sides of the camper like it was trying to warn me, "You're not welcome there. You never were." So yeah, when she called my house a family holding, something inside me cracked. But it wasn't pain anymore. It was something sharper. 3 days later, my dad showed up alone. That in itself was unusual. He never visited without my mother. Said he was in the area and just wanted to see how I was doing. I made coffee out of habit. We didn't say much until he set the cup down and sighed in that heavy, rehearsed way of his. "She thought about selling this place," he said casually, "to help Reed get out of that mess he made with the payday loans, but we figured you'd be okay holding on to it for now. Figured you'd understand." I didn't flinch, but I felt something inside me go still. I looked at him and said, "You thought I'd understand you taking the only thing I've ever had?" He had the nerve to look wounded. "Don't twist this, Evelyn. We thought we were doing what was best for the family." The family. That phrase again, like it had ever included me. That night, I sat alone in the kitchen, staring at the stack of documents I kept in a locked drawer. The deed, the loan approval, the title in my name, all proof that this house was mine. I'd earned every inch of it without them, without anyone. I was still staring at the paper when the knock came. Slow, deliberate. I opened the door to see Reed standing there, hands in his pockets, grinning like he'd just won something. "Hey," he said, "we were in the area. Thought we'd stop by. Kids are in the van. Aubrielle wants to see the place." My stomach dropped. This wasn't just a visit. This was the beginning. They came back on a Thursday. I'd barely shaken off the tension from Reed's uninvited visit days earlier, and yet there they were, again. Same knock, same smile, Same forced friendliness, like this wasn't my home they were invading, but some shared family asset they had full rights to browse through. "We were in the area," Aubrielle chirped as she ushered the kids through the doorway before I could answer. "Hope it's not a bad time." It was. Of course it was. Reed followed behind her, patting the side of the wall like he was greeting an old friend. "Feels good to stretch out," he muttered, as if the space somehow owed him comfort. I didn't stop them. I should have. But I stood there, frozen by the way their footsteps filled my house like a claim, like they were measuring it with every glance. Aubrielle poked her head into the spare room and said, "You'll probably turn that one into storage, huh?" Her tone was sharp and falsely casual. I didn't reply. My jaw was too tight. The visit lasted 20 minutes. 20 long minutes of kids jumping on my couch, Reed helping himself to my fridge, and Aubrielle commenting on how it's so quiet here, perfect for raising little ones. When they left, the silence they left behind felt violated, like fingerprints on every surface. I began cleaning, not because it was messy, but because I needed to reclaim it somehow. That's when I saw it. A piece of paper folded twice, tucked neatly beneath a magazine on the coffee table. I opened it. Lined notebook paper, blue ink, slanted handwriting. Master Reed in a room A kids, 2 bunk beds. Room B, baby plus grandma visits. I read it 3 times. My eyes scanned it like it would change. It didn't. Something hot and low burned in my stomach. My house, my walls, my effort. And they had drawn up a plan to divide it like it was some shared inheritance they were already spending. My grip on the paper crumpled its corners. I walked from room to room, pausing in each doorway like I was seeing my house through their eyes. Inventory, territory, claim, every book, every blanket, every framed photo. They had decided what would stay and what would become theirs. I texted Tyrone. "They're planning rooms, actual rooms, like I don't live here." He called immediately, his voice steady and grounding. "Don't say anything to them, just save everything. Document it. You need to stay ahead of this." 2 days later, we had a birthday gathering at Aunt Charlene's. Just a casual family thing, except nothing felt casual anymore. Aubrielle was all fake laughter and too loud compliments. Reed acted like I was invisible unless someone else was watching. I kept my distance, sitting by the kitchen island while the rest of them buzzed around the cake table. It was almost forgettable, until the slip. Aubrielle's oldest daughter tugged my sleeve mid-conversation. Her voice was high and innocent. "Aunt Evelyn, when can we move into your house? Mommy said you're just keeping it safe for us." The entire room froze for a breath. My heart did too. Aubrielle's smile twitched, cracked, then returned. "Sweetie, that's not what we said." But no one was listening anymore. They'd heard it. Everyone had. I didn't say a word. I just stood up, nodded at my aunt, and walked out before the air got any heavier. That night, as I locked my door and drew the curtains shut, my phone lit up. A message from Aubrielle. "Please don't twist what she said. Kids say the silliest things." I stared at it for a long moment. No reply. Instead, I walked into the guest room, locked the door behind me, and sat on the edge of the bed. There was no more assuming good intentions, no more brushing it off. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was preparation. I woke to 3 missed calls and a text from Tyrone. "You're going viral, and not in a good way." The words barely made sense through the blur of sleep, but the second I opened the link he sent, I felt the blood drain from my face. It was a live stream. Aubrielle, sitting on the curb with the kids around her, crying, sobbing into the camera as if she were auditioning for daytime television. "She kicked us out," she said. "No warning, no care, just told us to leave. I'm pregnant, for God's sake. And she left my babies standing in the cold." The caption underneath read, "Heartless sister kicks out pregnant mom and 4 kids. Share if you still believe in family." The video had over 40,000 views. I sat up so fast the blanket tangled around my legs. 1,000 thoughts fought for space in my head, but the loudest one was just, "She really did this." Scrolling through the comments made my stomach turn, strangers calling me a monster, others sharing it like it was gospel. There were screenshots of my front yard, people tagging my street, my employer, even a few "let's get her fired" threads. My hands shook as I checked my work email. Hi, Evelyn. Just wondering if everything's all right at home? Saw something online? Hope you're okay. Derek, from HR. Polite. Loaded. Then came the messages from family. What did you do to Aubrielle? You need to fix this. Call your mother. I didn't call anyone. I didn't cry. I didn't even get angry. Not yet. It was something colder than that. Something rooted deeper. I opened my messages and typed, me, take it down. Aubrielle. It's not personal. It's just what moms have to do sometimes. I stared at the screen. Then I looked at my window. The blinds were half open, just enough for someone to aim a camera through. Not personal. That was the moment the tide turned. Not in public, not yet, but inside me. Then it happened. A comment under the video almost lost in the flood. That's not her house. That's Evelyn's. I live 2 doors down. She's lying. It wasn't a full takedown, but it was a crack in the wall. More comments followed. People asking questions. Someone sharing a Google Street View image of my house. Same front steps. Same welcome mat. Same potted succulents Aubrielle had carefully placed herself in the frame of. Within an hour, the mood online shifted. Tyrone messaged me again. Want me to help clear things up? Yes, I replied. But only facts. He posted a statement with screenshots of legal documents, property records, and a single sentence from me. 2 years ago, I lived in a truck. Today, I own my home and I won't be manipulated out of it. The post gained traction fast. Local groups picked it up. A few bloggers even reshared it, calling it a classic case of social media spin gone wrong. My phone buzzed nonstop. I muted the family group chat. I didn't need their chaos. That night, my cousin Elise messaged privately. Just one line. Good for you. I was halfway through folding laundry when my phone buzzed again. Voicemail. My mother. Her voice was tight, layered in fake warmth. You need to fix this. We're coming over. I didn't finish the message. I didn't need to. I deleted it and stared at the screen. Let them come, I whispered. But this time I'd be ready. It started with another knock. Not pounding, not desperate, just confident. I opened the door, already on edge, and there they were, Reed in a black windbreaker, Aubrielle behind him with a smug little smile and a manila folder hugged tightly to her chest like a prized possession. We've got some paperwork for you, Reed said, stepping forward before I could respond. I didn't move. He reached into the folder and handed me a set of printed documents clipped together. My eyes skimmed the header, then dropped to the signature at the bottom. Mine. Except, it wasn't. The signature looked close, similar enough to fool someone who didn't know my hand, but it wasn't mine. Not the tilt, not the pressure, not the way I loop my L's like I've done since junior high. What is this supposed to be? I asked, my voice low and steady. A rental agreement, Aubrielle answered sweetly. You know, just to make it official. Official. As if they hadn't just crossed into felony territory with a forged lease and a fake signature. I never signed this, I said, flipping through the pages, each one making my stomach turn tighter. And you both need to leave. Now. Don't be dramatic, Reed said. We're just doing what's best for the family. It's already been a tough time, and this place has more than enough space. You're living here alone. I didn't answer him. Instead, I pulled out my phone and snapped a photo of the document right in front of their faces. Then I stepped back and closed the door without another word. Tyrone picked up on the second ring. They forged a lease tie with my signature. Don't say anything else. Send it to me and your legal team, immediately. I did. Within the hour, I'd attached the documents in an email to our company's legal counsel with a short note explaining what had happened. The next morning, the reply came fast. This is textbook fraud. You're well within your rights to pursue charges. Want us to refer an attorney? My hand hovered over the reply button. I wasn't ready for court, not yet. But for the first time in this fight, I didn't feel alone. I printed the email, the forged document, and every screenshot I had, organized them into a blue folder labeled Proof. Later that afternoon, I walked next door to speak to Ruth. She had heard the commotion the night before and had questions. I told her everything. They forged your name? She asked, eyes widening. Are they crazy? Yes, I said, but also strategic. They think I'll back down because it's family. Ruth shook her head. They think you're weak. You're not. If you want me to write something down, What I heard, what I saw, I will. And just like that, the tide turned. That night, I did something I hadn't done in months. I walked around my home without looking over my shoulder. I checked the doors, the windows, all locked. But when I went to double-check the front door, something stopped me. The lock. It was scratched, tiny scrapes around the keyhole, fresh, new. I didn't panic. I didn't flinch. I just looked at the mark, then turned slowly and backed away from the door. They weren't done, but neither was I. "Try me," I whispered into the silence. It was past 10:30, the kind of hour when the world finally exhaled and left me alone. Just the creak of the porch swing, the hum of a street lamp, and the soft clink of ice in my glass. I was almost beginning to believe I had a handle on this, that they had backed off, that maybe the forged lease was their last pathetic play. Then I heard it. Not loud, not chaotic, just movement. Soft footfalls and the low murmur of voices outside the fence line. I leaned forward and tapped the security app on my phone. The camera feed flickered to life. And there they were, 3 shadows, Reed, Marlene, and Dad, creeping along the side of my house like they were casing a property they hadn't already betrayed. Reed had a flashlight. Dad held the other end of a tape measure, and Marlene, clipboard in hand, whispered something I couldn't quite make out. But I didn't need the audio. I knew what they were doing. They were measuring the deck, the backyard, the side clearance near the camper, planning how much space they could reallocate. They didn't knock, they didn't call, they didn't ask. They mapped. I watched them move like burglars who'd convinced themselves they were heirs, and all I did was hit record. I saved the clip, labeled it claim_attempt_1.mp4. My hand hovered over the screen for a second longer than it needed to, because in that moment, I wasn't just angry. I was tired. 16 years ago, I watched them do the same thing with my grandmother's house, talking over her, rearranging her future as if she were already gone. I was 16, quiet, powerless. I'm not 16 anymore. The next morning, Ruth showed up with a coffee and that look she gets when she knows something she doesn't want to know. "They didn't see me," she said. "I was on my back porch. I recorded the whole thing." She handed me her phone. "You might want to save this." I played the clip. Clear as daylight, Marlene's voice said, "If we file a short-term residency claim and they stay 30 days, she won't be able to get them out without a court order." My breath didn't quicken, my pulse didn't spike, but I felt it, like a wire pulled taut in my chest, ready to snap. I nodded slowly and handed the phone back. "Can you email that to me?" "Already did." That night I walked the perimeter of my home. I replaced every bulb with motion-sensitive floodlights, posted new no trespassing signs at every entry point, called my legal contact, changed the locks, again. This time I added steel bars on the inside. Tyrone came by just before sundown, rewired the motion sensors, helped install a driveway cam. Neither of us spoke much. We didn't need to. When he left, I stood in the living room alone, lights off, just watching the windows. Then, another knock. Not family. A courier, manila envelope, no return name. Inside, a printed copy of a notice of intent to occupy, blank signature line, typed dates, bold language about reasonable use of family property. No one had signed it. It wasn't real. It was just meant to intimidate. I folded it once, then again. Walked out to the fire pit in the backyard and lit a match. As the paper curled and darkened into ash, I whispered, "Not today." This wasn't a negotiation anymore. It was territory. I knew something was off the second I pulled into the driveway. The porch light was on, dim, flickering, but the house itself looked too still, too occupied. The front door had splinters near the knob, fresh ones, a twist of metal shaving on the welcome mat. My breath tightened, but I didn't panic. I set the grocery bag on the hood of my car and unlocked my phone. One swipe, and the camera app was rolling. I opened the door. Voices, movement. Aubrielle was in the living room, stacking throw pillows like she was decorating a catalog shoot. Reed stood in the hallway, directing the kids on which rooms had their names on them. My kitchen smelled like leftover pizza, something I never kept in the house. Aubrielle turned mid-laugh and said, "We just got tired of waiting." I didn't speak. I walked in slowly, camera still rolling, gaze sweeping across my own home as if I were the intruder. Reed noticed me and shrugged. "You weren't using the space. We figured it was time." I kept the camera steady. "Get out." "Come on, Evelyn," Aubrielle said, voice syrupy. "We're family. Don't make a scene." I said, "Get out." She flinched but didn't back down. "You're really calling the cops over this? You'd report your own brother?" I didn't even blink. "You're not my family, not anymore." She scoffed, and Reed started mumbling about legal rights and mutual use, but I was already dialing. The officers arrived faster than I expected. Small-town perks. I showed them the video, the paperwork, the damage to the door. I explained everything in clipped, clear words. Reed stood with his arms crossed, offering half-truths and tone-polished excuses. But it didn't matter anymore. One of the officers pulled me aside. "You should know, this isn't the first time we've had a situation like this with your brother. There was something similar 2 years ago. Different town. Same story." I didn't react. Not on the outside. But inside? Something snapped into place. They told Reed and Aubrielle to vacate immediately or face criminal charges. They argued. Of course they did. But it was half-hearted. They packed up the kids and slinked out through the front door they'd barged into, muttering about betrayal and how messed up I was. I didn't hear the specifics. I'd stopped listening. The next day, I filed the report. Official, legal, cold. Then I changed the locks. Again. This time I added a chain, bolted from the inside. I placed a small hidden camera in the hallway. Quiet moves, no emotion. That night I stood in the kitchen, the soft glow of the fridge casting a dull blue on the tile, and whispered to myself, I was never weak, just patient. It wasn't fear I felt anymore. It was something sharper. Hours later, as I sat on the couch reading, a soft shuffling caught my attention. Something slid under the door. A letter. No envelope, just a folded sheet of lined paper. Handwriting I knew too well. "You didn't have to take it this far. You've humiliated all of us." I didn't read the rest. I didn't need to. I tore it down the middle and tossed it into the trash. They didn't break just the lock. They broke the last illusion that I owed them anything. The neighborhood had turned into a stage, and I'd become the villain in someone else's play. That morning, I walked out to water the plants on the porch and felt eyes. Subtle, but different. Mrs. Connolly, who used to wave from her driveway, turned and walked inside when she saw me. The mailman gave me a forced nod, barely making eye contact. Then, Ruth appeared at the fence line with a hesitant look I hadn't seen on her before. "Evelyn," she started, then sighed. "I thought you should know. Your mom's been going around, talking to neighbors, telling them you kicked your brother and the kids out, that you've turned cold on family." I didn't speak. I didn't need to. Ruth's face said the rest. "She came to me too," she added. "Said you've changed, that the house made you bitter. I told her she needed to stop, but people listen." That's when I realized this wasn't about the house anymore. It was about the story. The story they were shaping around me. If they couldn't take the place, they'd strip it of peace. Back inside, I checked the mailbox. Buried between bills was a handwritten note. Just a folded scrap of paper, barely sealed. "Family should be sacred. Shame on you." I didn't recognize the handwriting. That made it worse. I folded it neatly and put it in the evidence folder alongside the forged lease and the utility reports. My fingers trembled only for a second, just enough to remind me I still felt it. But I wasn't losing ground. Not anymore. That night, I made dinner in silence. No music, no TV, just the occasional clink of a spoon against ceramic. Then the lights flickered, once, twice, and went out. The house fell into instant black. The fridge clicked off. The hum of the AC cut mid-cycle. I stood perfectly still. No storm outside, no wind, just nothing. I checked the breakers, intact. The house's system was fine. Then I opened the utility company's portal on my phone. Status? Disconnected. By resident request. Except I never made that request. I stared at the screen for a full minute before I moved. Then I grabbed the flashlight and water jug I kept under the sink and sat on the couch in the dark. A few minutes later, headlights hit my driveway. Tyrone. He walked in holding a portable generator and 2 gallons of water. He didn't ask questions, just nodded. "This is a crime," he said as he plugged the generator in. "We're not just playing defense anymore." "No," I agreed, watching the kitchen come back to life in harsh, buzzing light. "We never were." We sat at the table and filed a police report together. Utility tampering, identity fraud, harassment. My name at the bottom of that form didn't tremble. Later that night, I sat at the computer and opened a blank post titled, "Let's set the record straight." I drafted it carefully. No yelling, no bitterness, just facts. Where I was 2 years ago, living in a truck. Where I am now, owning my home. What they tried to do, and how I stood up to it. Just before I hit publish, another voicemail came in. My father. "You've gone too far," his voice said. "This is tearing us apart." I deleted it without listening to the rest. Then I pressed post, and for the first time in weeks, I exhaled. They had made this war public, so I let the truth speak louder. The morning light hit different that day. It wasn't warmer or brighter, it just felt clean, like something had shifted. My phone buzzed as I was pouring coffee, and I almost ignored it. But then I saw Ruth's name. Not a text, she'd tagged me in a post. I clicked it open. It was a long message in the neighborhood group. Not defensive, not vague, just honest. "I owe my neighbor Evelyn an apology. I believe things I shouldn't have. I let someone twist the truth and I'm embarrassed by it. What she's dealt with behind closed doors, it's more than any of us should have let happen. She stood up when many of us stayed silent. That won't be me anymore." There were already over 60 comments, most of them supportive, some apologetic. "I'm sorry, Evelyn. We didn't know. She's always been kind. I should have spoken up sooner." That was the moment I realized the tide had turned. For weeks they had the story, the spotlight, the sympathy, but I had the truth. And Ruth had just handed me the microphone. Later that morning, Tyrone called. "I've got something," he said. "That utility shutdown? It was requested from an IP address using shared Wi-Fi. Guess where?" I already knew. "Reed's work?" I asked. "Bingo." I didn't even flinch. "Send me the logs." He did, along with screenshots, timestamps, and an affidavit-ready write-up. Digital identity theft. I filed the fraud report before lunch. By late afternoon, the house was still quiet. Peaceful, until it wasn't. Another knock. Familiar. Unwelcome. This time, they brought the full cast. Reed, Aubrielle, Marlene. The kids in the van crying on cue. Aubrielle sobbed into her hands like it had just hit her that I wasn't going to hand over my life. Marlene looked me dead in the eye and said, "This will break the family forever." I didn't raise my voice. I didn't scream. "You broke it years ago," I replied, calm as stone. "I just stopped pretending we could fix it." I handed her a folder. Inside, copies of the fraud report, video screenshots, utility logs, the police report, and Ruth's public statement. "If you come back again," I said, "it won't be me answering the door, it'll be the sheriff." Reed looked like he wanted to spit something out, some final jab, some parting shot, but he didn't. They left, and I didn't watch them walk away. That night I stepped out into the backyard with a blanket and sat near the fire pit. The ashes from the last letter they slipped under my door were still there, buried under a bit of wind-blown pine needle and soot. For the first time in weeks, the street was quiet. No watchers, no whispers, just me. The stars were out, clear sky above, silence all around. They tried to erase me from my own life, but I wrote myself back in. A week after the storm passed, my life no longer felt like something I had to defend. I woke up to sunlight crawling across the hardwood floors, the sound of birds outside my window. Not yelling, not tires screeching into my driveway, not the throb of dread rising in my chest. Just morning. And peace. The house was still, undisturbed. Mine. I stepped barefoot into the backyard, coffee in hand. The air smelled like wet grass and new beginnings. I walked the perimeter like I used to back when I first bought it, back when I felt small and unworthy of stability. Now, every step felt like a reclaimed inch. I didn't win a war, I just ended one. There was no press conference, no apology, just quiet. Later that morning, a message pinged on my phone from Elise, my cousin. "They're still trying to spin it, just so you know. I didn't open the screenshots, didn't read the quotes or watch the videos. I deleted the message and left my phone inside. 16 years ago, I would have read every word, tried to defend myself to people who never deserved that effort. I would have cried, pleaded, apologized for things I didn't do, just for a sliver of conditional love. But I'm not 16 anymore. I sat on the edge of my bed and pulled up the voicemail my mother left weeks ago, the one I couldn't bring myself to finish. This time, I listened. Her voice shook. "Evelyn, I don't know what happened. We didn't mean to push so hard. I just wanted us all together again. I didn't think it would get this far. Please, just don't let this be the end of us." Then sobbing, muffled, real. But I didn't cry. Sadness came, but not like a wave. More like a whisper. I understood something I hadn't before. Love, when it comes with strings, isn't love at all. It's leverage, and I was done being leveraged. That weekend, I hosted a barbecue. Small. Just friends, co-workers, Ruth, Tyrone. We ate under string lights I'd put up myself, shared stories that didn't include excuses, and laughed without watching the shadows. Someone asked, "Do you talk to your family now?" I smiled. Not bitter, not broken. Just sure. I wished them well, from far away. I didn't owe them anything more. A few days later, I heard Reed had taken leave from work, pending investigation. Aubrielle moved back in with her mother. My parents stopped showing their faces around town once Ruth's post went viral. But I didn't feel triumphant. Just whole. That night, I went out to the camper, the one I used to sleep in behind warehouses and supermarket parking lots. I turned it into a reading nook. Blankets, books, quiet. I lit a candle, flipped open my journal. I used to think survival was enough. Now I want peace. I looked out through the window, saw the porch light glowing, the grass still wet from the sprinkler, the home I fought to keep glowing softly like it had always been mine. And this time, I believed it. I stood at the front door one last time, hand on the knob, not to open it, but just to feel the weight of how far I'd come. This time, the house is mine, and so is the life inside it. Looking back now, I realize that some battles aren't about winning. They're about choosing not to lose yourself. I spent years thinking that keeping the peace meant staying quiet, letting things slide, forgiving people who never asked for forgiveness. But there comes a time when silence is no longer noble, it's surrender. If you're someone who's ever been made to feel like your voice was too loud, your boundaries too firm, or your independence too selfish, I want you to hear this from someone who lived through it. You're not wrong for protecting what's yours, whether that's your home, your peace, or your dignity. Family isn't about shared blood, it's about shared respect. And no one gets to weaponize love to keep you small. So I'll ask you this. Have you ever had to draw a line with people who claim to love you? What did it cost you, and what did you gain? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Drop a comment below. If this story touched something in you, comment 1, or tell me where you're watching from. And hey, if this didn't hit home, tell me why. Let's talk about it. I read everything. If this video moved you, please subscribe to the channel. There are more stories like this, real, raw, human. Because sometimes hearing someone else's truth is the first step to owning your own.